Have you noticed some homes selling quickly right now, while others just sit, or worse, go under contract, but a week later you see they're back on the market again? Yeah, this is catching a lot of sellers and agents off guard. And if you're watching that thinking, what happened there? I'll tell you exactly what happened. The deal didn't fall apart over paint colors. It fell apart during the inspection. And here's the part most people don't think about. You've accepted the offer, you're starting to plan your move, maybe you're even packing, and then the inspection report comes in. And suddenly, everything changes. If you're thinking about selling your home here in the Denver suburbs, especially if you're doing this on your own, this is the part of the process you really need to understand before you ever list your home. Because I'm seeing this happen more and more right now. Sellers are doing all the right things to get their home on the market. They get an offer, sometimes even a strong one, and they think, okay, we're good. But they're not actually good yet. You're only under contract. You're not through inspection. And that's where I'm seeing deals start to fall apart. Not because the home didn't show well, not because they didn't get an offer, but because of what shows up once the buyer takes a closer look. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what's actually happening right now in our Denver market and why some homes are still selling just fine and why I'm seeing others, sometimes unexpectedly, fall apart during the buyer's inspection period. And more importantly, how a little preparation and planning on your part can keep that from happening to your deal. Because buyers today are being a lot more careful about what they're willing to take on. And honestly, in this market, that makes sense. So the first shift I'm seeing right now is this. Buyers are no longer walking into a home expecting to fix things. A few years ago, buyers were a lot more flexible. They knew they might have to deal with some things after closing. They were okay with that. After all, inventory was tight, and in a lot of cases, there were multiple bids on a home. So as long as everything felt safe, they were okay with your old projects. But today, that's not what I'm seeing. With higher home prices, higher interest rates, higher insurance costs, buyers are already stretching just to get into the home. So when the inspection report comes back with issues, they're not thinking, oh, I'll take care of that later. They're thinking, can I afford this on top of everything else? And for a lot of buyers right now, the answer is no. Not because they don't like the house, but because they don't want to take on more uncertainty after they close. And this is where I see sellers get caught off guard. Because from their perspective, everything feels fine. The house has worked for them. Nothing feels urgent. Nothing feels like a big deal. And there's this quiet thought of, it was good enough for me. It should be fine for the next person. But that's not how the buyers are looking at it anymore. Because once that inspection happens, those small things suddenly get looked at very differently. And what felt minor to you can feel like a bigger risk to them. And in some cases, it is a bigger risk. I had this happen just recently last fall with the first-time buyer I was working with. We went under contract on a home. Everything looked great at first. But during the inspection, we found a furnace that was at the end of its life and not performing quite the way it should. Now, a few years ago, that might have been a repair and maybe a home warranty and everybody moving on. But this time, that wasn't going to work. The buyer simply couldn't take that on after closing. So we had to go back and renegotiate and push for a brand new furnace. And that's the difference in today's market. And that also leads into the second shift that I'm seeing right now. It's not just what's coming up during inspection. It's how unprepared the sellers are for what comes next. Sellers are getting their homes ready to list, but sometimes they're not fully prepared for what happens once they go under contract. Because getting your home ready to show well is not the same as being ready for inspection and the decisions that come after that. So what happens is this. The home looks great. It gets attention. It gets an offer. And everything feels like it's going according to plan. But then that inspection report comes in. And now you're being asked questions you didn't fully prepare for. This is where I see a lot of sellers start to get stuck. Because now you're trying to figure out, do I fix this? Do I give a credit? Do I push back? Is this really a big deal or not? And when you're making those decisions under pressure is when you're reacting instead of following a strategy. It's very easy to make the wrong call. And sometimes that looks like agreeing to things you didn't expect or pushing back on something that ends up costing you the deal. Not because the home couldn't sell, but because a strategy wasn't there. And this is exactly why thinking through your next steps before you ever hit the market matters so much. It's also why I put together a simple what's next guide, not to walk you through inspections, but because a lot of what causes stress later in the process actually comes from not thinking things through early on. Because once you're in the middle of a deal, you don't get the luxury of taking your time. And that leads into the third shift that I'm seeing right now. Yeah, sellers who feel most confident through this process, they aren't the ones with the perfect houses. Now, they're the ones that have taken time to think things through ahead of time. They've already asked themselves things like, what condition is my home really in? What might a buyer question? What am I willing to address and what am I not willing to address? So when something comes up, it's not a surprise, it becomes a conversation, not a reaction. Because the truth is, very few homes are perfect. Things will come up, and the difference is whether you're prepared for them or caught off guard by them. And that's where this process either starts to feel manageable or starts to feel overwhelming. And this is really where that what's next guide comes in handy. It's not about checking boxes, it's about helping you step back and think through your move as a whole, so you're not making those big decisions in the middle of a stressful moment. Because when you approach this with a plan, you don't just get through the process, you stay in control of it. So if you're starting to think about a move, and you want to feel a little more prepared before you take that next step, I'll link the What's Next guide down below so you can start thinking through things ahead of time. And if we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Peggy Durstoff, a realtor with Live Denver Suburbs powered by HomeSmart, and I help women 50 plus make smart real estate moves without pressure and without regret, especially when they're doing it on their own. So if you have questions or you just want to talk through your situation, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help you map it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.